Hello everyone, I'm excited today to talk about my experience as a D1 athlete running cross country and track and field. Today will be a little bit of a quick version, and in the future, if anyone's interested, I will end up doing a longer one. But I wanted to share my experience specifically as a walk-on athlete, and a lot of the time people don't hear about that, and so I thought it would be useful to share. So for myself, I knew I wanted to run in college, and so what I did, because I didn't have the typical recruitment and signing weekend, things like that, but I looked into schools that I was interested in, looked at their roster and what their times were, and then I would reach out to the coach to see if they would be willing to let me walk on. There was one school I was mostly interested in, and so that was the first school I talked to the coach with, and he let me join as a walk-on athlete. And then after that point, honestly, my experience, at least at the school I was at, did not feel any different from maybe someone who had signed. I still got to participate in all of the training. I got to run the races. I got all of the gear. And so, unless someone specifically asked me or noticed that I didn't do a signing weekend, they probably wouldn't even know that I had walked onto the team. And so my experience was overall very positive, and I had an academic scholarship, and that made it easier for me to just be a walk-on athlete. And now, my experience was kind of all over the place. I ran from 2020 to 2024, so as you can imagine, 2020 was a strange year. It was difficult for a lot of us because we were training, but we were training for nothing because a lot of the races were canceled, postponed, and so that was a difficult year. So after that freshman year, I ended up taking a year off where I had to figure some things out, and I met my now husband, so it all worked out. But then I asked the coach again if I could rejoin, and he let me join for my junior and senior year as a walk-on once again. And so kind of what surprised me going into this was just how great my walk-on experience was. It was perfect for what I needed, and I feel like it helped me put less pressure on myself and still be able to enjoy the sport that I love to do. I was also surprised at how far you run for training, at least for my high school experience. The furthest I had ever run was maybe 7 miles, and then you switch to college running and you're doing usually at least 10 miles a day, multiple practices, and so that was a big change. Even though you're training more, you learn that you can really run so far and so much faster, and that was a pleasant surprise to me. I was able and lucky to see myself get better throughout my experience in college, and so my senior year ended up being my fastest year as well. And then one other thing, stretching and icing will do wonders for you if you're trying to prevent or recover from injuries, as well as cross training. Those were the three things that really helped me, and they're simple, but they made a big difference. And I think two of the most challenging things that people will usually face are injury and comparison. I did face some injuries my junior year. Mostly it was really bad shin splints, and then I did have some issues with bone spurs my freshman year. Luckily, I was able to recover from those by just taking time off and different things like that. But that can be really frustrating, and that is something that's really difficult for a lot of people. Another thing is comparison. When I started, it was interesting because social media and the NIL deals were not really a part of my school at the time. We were transitioning from D2 to D1, and so that wasn't really present, and it started to get incorporated more towards the end, and I liked it. But part of what was in a way kind of nice is that because my school wasn't involved in that, it felt like there was less comparison, and I think that was actually helpful. But you're still going to probably have times where you're comparing yourself to your past self, to others on your team, or just in general, and so that's something to also be aware of. If you can keep that in your mind, it can help you to push past those difficulties. And I really loved being on the team. I loved challenging myself, I loved running, and I met some really great friends, and it really gave me the college experience I wanted. And so for that, I will always be so grateful that it is something I did during college. And then for anyone who's interested in college sports, I would say if you're not the top athlete, that's totally fine. Look at schools you're interested in, look at their rosters, try to figure out maybe places where the times you're running would fit, and then talk to athletes, reach out to coaches, and don't be afraid to walk on. Even though I never had that walk on to being the number one athlete experience, I still had such a great time, and it was really worth it to me. Sometimes the things that you want to do are worth doing even if you're not the best at it. And now that I am done with college athletics, I'm now still in school. I'm going to graduate school. I decided not to continue running, even though I do have technically some years of eligibility left. But I really enjoyed my experience, and so figured going into grad school I would do other things. And I still love running. Since then, I've run a couple half marathons and am hoping to run another race soon. But what's kind of great now is I have all this knowledge about fitness and running, and I really just want to share that with other people. And I love the flexibility I've had in being able to learn new hobbies or new sports and just spend some time doing some other things. So that's where I'm at now, and that's my overall D1 athlete college experience. And I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you next time.